Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're looking at the problem of white lines in patterns in Illustrator, and in particular when you're trying to extract a pattern swatch that you can take from Illustrator to a site like Spoonflower. Now, sites like Spoonflower require you to upload the actual pattern swatch, not something that is created and filled with the pattern. That's what I've got here. I've got a rectangle, it's filled with the pattern. When I select the rectangle, you can see it's filled with my pattern, which is a wiggly line. That is not suitable for Spoonflower. But the problem is that if you try and package this pattern up for Spoonflower, there's a chance that you're going to be delivering to Spoonflower something that has got a problem line in it. Let's just go and have a look. I'm going to get rid of all of the elements here. I'm going to go and get my pattern swatch, which is in my swatches panel. This is my pattern. I'm going to drag it out into the document. Now, as with every single pattern in Illustrator, regardless of how complex or simple it is, there will always be, as the very last element in that pattern, a no fill, no stroke rectangle. That's the way patterns are made. So, to prepare this for Spoonflower, we're going to drag this all the way up above the group that contains the pattern. Now, you could make a duplicate and drag the duplicate up, or you can just drag the original. It doesn't matter, it's the same end product. We're going to select everything. You can do that by choosing select all. You can drag with the selection tool over absolutely everything, or over here in the layers palette you can click on the no fill, no stroke rectangle and then hold the shift key as you click on the pattern itself. Whatever, you need to get everything selected. We're going to make a clipping mask. And a clipping mask in Illustrator is going to take that no fill, no stroke rectangle that we just placed above everything and use it to hide everything that is not inside that rectangle. We choose Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And everything around the outside is hidden. It's not been deleted, it's just hidden. Let's have a look in here. You can see here's our group with the pattern in it. All the elements are in there. It's just that we can't see them. And that's perfect. We're now ready to export this. So with the pattern swatch selected, we can choose File and then Export, Export As. Now I'm just going to call my file Diagonal Line 1. I have Use Artboards deselected because I had a piece of art on the artboard. I don't want to actually save the whole artboard because there's a whole lot of empty space around that, which is not part of the pattern. So just make sure that you're thinking about whether or not this option should be checked. It looks like it's tucked away in a corner and doesn't mean much. It means a lot. So I'm just going to click Export. Now I'm exporting RGB color mode. I'm using the maximum quality because I don't want JPEG artifacts in my pattern. I'm using a resolution of 150 ppi. You can increase that. I just want to be able to see things a little more clearly when we head to Photoshop, and I'll click OK. So this pattern element is now saved. Let's go to Photoshop because that's what you should do to check it. You need to check the JPEG file that you get or the PNG file that you get from Illustrator to make sure it's okay. We'll choose File and Open. I'm going to go and get my diagonal line, click OK, and let's go and have a look. And I can already see their problems. When I zoom in, you can see that the edge here, this last pixel, is lighter, and the ones across the top are really light. And so when these are all joined together in a pattern where the black areas intersect, we're going to have lines. Now you can prove that to yourself if you don't understand what's happening here by going Select All, and in Photoshop you'll choose Edit, Define Pattern. Then we'll go and make a brand new document with File New. Now this is easy enough. Even if you have no familiarity at all with Photoshop, you can do this. It's not that difficult to do. I'm going to make a 3600 by 3600 pixel document. That's standard sort of scrapbook size paper. If it was scrapbook paper, it would be 300 pixels per inch. I'll click Create. Now to fill it with our pattern, we'll choose Layer, New Fill Layer, Pattern. Click OK, and the very last pattern that we created is the one that is in use to fill this document. On the face of it, it looks okay, but I can see here there's a problem right in here. and that is where those little elements in the pattern join up to this element, and those little white lines are causing a problem. So this pattern is not working. This element that we extracted from Illustrator does not work. Now, there are a few things that you can consider in Illustrator that might improve your chances of getting out a pattern element that will work. I'm just going to delete this because it didn't work. Let's go and double click on the pattern itself. Now, there is a suggestion that if your pattern tile, which is this no fill, no stroke rectangle, what's going to become the no fill, no stroke rectangle, if that is whole numbers rather than numbers that have fractional bits, that you are going to improve your chances, and even more if it's divisible by 2. So the width obviously at 480 is divisible by 2. The height is 472.973, so it's nearly 473. But if I make it 473, it's not going to be divisible by 2. So I'm going to go all the way this time. I'm going to make it 474. Now, it would have been better had I created my pattern at these dimensions before I'd started. So you probably just need to be aware of that keep an eye on what the dimensions are of your pattern, and if you're just starting out designing it, then start with values that are divisible by 2 and that are whole numbers, because that will give you a better chance. I need to go and check and make sure my pattern's lining up, which it's not. So this would immediately have been causing all sorts of problems. Because I made my pattern tile larger, my pattern doesn't work anymore. So I have to just go and fix this. Okay, I'm happy with that. If it's okay up here, it's automatically going to be okay down here. That's the way patterns work. If they join up here, they're always going to join down there. So I'm good with that. I'm just going to click done. So now we have our pattern element. Let's go and do the same thing as we did previously. We're going to take the no fill, no stroke rectangle, it or a duplicate of it, just put it above everything. We're going to select everything. I'm using Control or Command A. We're going to create our clipping mask. And then we're going to save this. So I'm just adding the words fixed pattern size. In other words, I fixed the pattern size, and I'm going to export that. So that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to identify which pattern this is when I go back to Photoshop. So I'm just going to go and delete the one that we had previously. Let's go and open this new one. Click open. I can immediately see I've still got problems. Up here in this corner, problems. Down here, even bigger problems. So we've got bigger problems than we had previously with this particular design. So we're going nowhere really, really fast. Let's go back to Illustrator. There are other suggestions that say that the positioning of this element is also crucial. So if we have a look up here, at the moment I'm targeting this corner. If we have a look up here at the position of this corner, it's not on a whole number of pixels. So I'm going to move it so that it is. I'm actually just going to move it to 0, 0, just for convenience. So now it's up the top corner of the document, and we know it's positioned at a nice even value. We also know that the size of our pattern tile is not only whole numbers but divisible by 2. Let's have another go. We've fixed the pattern size and we've fixed the alignment. Exactly the same settings otherwise. We'll close this one. It didn't work. Let's go and get this one where we've got the fixed pattern size and fixed alignment. This is looking good. This is looking really good. Until we get down here where it's looking not very good at all. We've still got problems on this bottom edge. Again, problems on this bottom edge. So this is not going to work. It's still going to have lines in it if we create it as a pattern. We can test it, select all, create it as a pattern. Go and target the file we're working with. Double click on this layer that we added. Click the drop down list here, and we're going to select the very, very last pattern in this dialog. So go all the way down to the end. This is the one that we just created. Click OK. And we're going to look in here because this is where the problem is. And you can see it aligned through our pattern. And so that would be visible, or at least potentially visible, on a print of this pattern. So let's go back to Illustrator. There's something else that we can do here. What we can do is use a different method of saving our file. So instead of the export, let's try this. File, export, and we're going to choose Save for Web Legacy because I've had different results with the exact same object with Export As and Save for Web Legacy. So let's see how that goes. Now we've got a problem here in that although I had that piece of art selected, you can see that this tool right now is trying to export the whole artboard. Well, that's because of this option here. I have it set to clip to artboard. I'm just going to disable that. So if that happens to you, just be aware that this is like the artboard selector in the export dialog. Only in this case we want to have it deselected so that we're only going to export our selected art. And I'm just going to click Save. So I'm going to pick up this same file name, but I'm going to add to it Save for Web and click Save. Let's go and have a look and see how that goes in Photoshop. This corner is really good. This corner is really good. So too is this corner, and because all of those three corners are good, the chances are that this bottom one's going to be just fine too. Okay, so there are some ideas. Now, I can't promise you that these are going to work perfectly for you. I can't promise you that that Save for Web Legacy is always going to bail you out. But there are some things that you should consider when you're creating these patterns in Illustrator. Make sure that your pattern tile is an even number of pixels. It doesn't have little numbers or fractions after the decimal point. Make sure that they're divisible by 2, because when you're designing your pattern, it doesn't really matter to you whether it's divisible by 2 or not, but it might matter to Illustrator. I suggest that you align your pattern to the very top corner of your artboard and then work between the export options. File, Export. Export As is probably your better alternative if it works for you, but as you can see in the experiments that I've done here, it didn't work for any of them. And so what I did was I used Save for Web Legacy. It's probably worth having a quick look at this dialog if you haven't used it before. I actually really like this dialog. I use this a lot. The problem with this is that you won't be able to set the PPI of your document. It's going to be saved at 96 PPI. So this is a different result to the Export As option, because if you use Export As, you can set the number of pixels per inch, and your file will be larger if you choose 150 PPI than it would be if you chose 72. Your document is much larger. And again, if you choose 300 PPI, it's going to be larger still. If you don't know that, and if you don't understand that, I'm going to put a link to a video in the description below that explains that. So if that was confusing to you, go watch that video. But here, we don't get to choose the PPI. It's necessarily going to be set to 96 and we don't get a choice. So if you want a larger element, you're going to come in here, you're going to set this little icon on, and you're going to double or triple this value. Now 480 will double to 960. So I'm going to make it 4 times the area, double the width and double the height, and so I've got a larger element, but it's still only going to be 96 PPI. You can choose JPEG or you can choose PNG 8 or 24. I suggest if you're using PNG, choose PNG 24, more colors there. You get to select your compression quality, and we're choosing maximum quality, and I've got quality set to 100 here as well. I'm also concerned to have Clip to Artboard disabled in this instance because I don't want to send out the artboard, I just want to send out the selected art. And of course that's going to mean that you have to select your art before you come and use this dialog. And I am using Art Optimized. If you get to the stage where you absolutely cannot get this piece of art out without the corners fixed, then you could try None for Art Optimized. It's going to be a much clunkier version of your pattern, and you probably will want to scale it up quite a bit bigger so that you get rid of the artifacts that are going to be built in, but it will also give you a better chance of getting a pattern out that does not have problems along the edges. So that's the Save for Web dialog, and as we've seen, it bailed us out in this situation. It gave us a pattern element that we could send to Spoonflower that we could not get from using the other export options. So those are the sorts of things that you want to consider as you're working in Illustrator and trying to get a pattern element out that is going to be okay to upload to Spoonflower and is not going to have built-in problems. This stuff is seriously confusing and it's seriously annoying, and it's been around for years and Illustrator hasn't fixed it, and it is an Illustrator issue, and so hopefully this video has helped you. Before we finish up, I have more Illustrator training at Skillshare.com. When you sign up for Skillshare, you get access to thousands of classes there, including over 250 of mine. In the description below is a Skillshare coupon for you, which is at least as good as the current Skillshare offer, and typically mine will be better. I also have Illustrator training at Udemy.com, and there's a referral link for each of those courses in the description below. Please feel free to share these with family, friends, and co-workers. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've learnt things about Illustrator of which you were previously unaware. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be alerted when new videos are released. Until next time, my name's Helen Bradley. Thank you so much for joining me here on my YouTube channel.